Choosing a big game rod for a number of species can make for a difficult decision given the wide range of products available. Baits, techniques, average target size, water depth, and how that species reacts all have to be considered. How critical is length? To say you want a rod for lake trout, you really need to zero in on what's the average size of lake trout.
Look at that guy. Oh,
Budget might dictate how many rods and the quality of rods you can acquire. Can you use one rod for all techniques and species? If you're just starting out or just upgrading your equipment, you might want to choose a rod that will serve you best fishing for species that you're most likely to fish most of the time.
Hi, I'm John White, and I'm here to answer the question about big game rods. And the first question is, can you fish with a single rod for all the species? The answer to that is actually yes. For the last few years, particularly on Lake Simcoe, most of the guides and more experienced anglers that I know that are fishing for trout, whitefish, and ling, they use this Fenwick Elite Tech 36-inch. Some use it in a medium, some like a medium heavy. I use both. And this has become pretty well the standard for the lake. But if it's a bit of a longer rod, 36 inches, you know, I often get the question also, is more length more control? Well, to a degree, that's probably true, but once you get into 36 to 40 inches, you're pretty well maxed out. If you're outside, you might want to use a 36 to 42, but that would be the maximum. Anything after 42 inches, really, you start to lose control of it more than gain control of it. It also depends on personal preferences. Some people fish very inside, and some are more animated with their arm, so their arm becomes part of an extension, if you will, of the rod itself. Again, I've caught a lot of very large trout on a 30-inch medium heavy rod.
oh, got something on the bottom.
So if I can do that, and my loss rate is very low, so if I can do that, there isn't a lot of length that's going to help me with any species.
Unlike open water, where you're trying to cover a lot of water for a specific species, where you're using a lot of techniques and different baits, using variable lengths, weights, tip action all come into play. In a boat, you can move the rod up, down, sideways, anything to change the angle from the fish. But through the ice, everything's vertical. You can't change the angle of the rod, can't change the angle of the line. Everything is dependent on the surge, the bounce, the control of the pumping directly below you. It's true that a big pike or a trout or even a walleye in shallow water will run sideways, but through 2 feet of ice, you can't control the angle of the fight. But in this instance, the parabolics of the rod and perfect smooth drag are the only thing that's going to save you. Just remember that the rod handles the pump and the reel handles the run.
So for this winter, I've chosen 3 rods that I'll have with me all the time to do the bulk of the fishing that I'm going to do on Lake Simcoe, Georgian Bay, and other lakes. Any of these rods will pull any fish from the Great Lakes through a hole in the ice. The first one is a 36-inch Elite Tech. This is a solid carbon blank, incredible parabolics, good strong rod. And this rod I'll be using for lake trout, large walleye, and things of that nature, and any other fish that will bite it. The second rod that I'm using is a 30-inch Tekna. Again, solid carbon blank. And I chose this medium heavy, extra fast 30-inch Tekna. As you've seen in the video, you can pull a pretty big fish through the hole with a 30-inch rod. And I'm pretty animated, so my rod is not 30 inches. It's actually whatever this is to take the surges. So this is my second rod that I'll have with me all the time. And then finally, I have this beauty. This is the new Fenwick World Class rod. This is a 32-inch medium heavy, extra fast rod, and I'll be using this primarily for whitefish and small walleye. This rod here is incredibly sensitive. And you may say, well, do I really need that much sensitivity for larger fish? Well, when the fish are on and they're smacking baits, maybe you don't. But a lot of times with both walleye and whitefish, they tend to mouth baits and spit them, and or they hit them on the upstroke when you're jigging, or they pin them on the bottom and you can't feel them. So having an ultra-sensitive rod is a real benefit in this case. Now, if I move outside, it's a nice day out, fishing for big trout, big walleye, I might go to a 42-inch rod, which is the longest of the Fenwick rods.
It's important to note that the actual rod in play is from the spool to the tip. Everything behind it is just butt, which people rarely hold, but good for rod holders.
So that's my lineup for this winter. I hope it's given you some insight into what you may want. 60 years of passion and innovation. Fenwick makes everything from the world class to workhorse rods for the experience to the beginner. I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. Hope you catch a lot of fish. Stay safe on the ice and on land.
The full line of Fenwick rods are available and in stock at Trombley's Tackle Box in Orillia.